We've made our way to the Du Bois County 4-H Fair for something a lot of people talk about, but some things may not get done a lot about, and that's water quality. We bring in Julie Loehr with the Patoka River Watershed this evening. Julie, explain what you guys do. You have a map back here.
Can I hold this? Yeah. Basically, my job as watershed coordinator is just to coordinate efforts between the government and the landowners and the producers and the urban areas and the people living in the cities to try and make sure that we take care of our water quality and that we conserve water where we can. My job in particular is involving the lower Patoka River and the middle Patoka River, but I'm also working with some of the people who are dealing with like the Patoka Lake watershed or even the upper Patoka River watershed. Now, watershed is just a body of land that all the water will run across to get to a particular water body. So the lower Patoka watershed's running to the lower Patoka, and the Patoka Lake watershed, all that water's running to the Patoka Lake. So the watershed is just the land around that particular body of water. Now, go ahead.
Okay, you go ahead.
One of the things that we're doing, it's funded by a 319 grant that is set up through IDEM, Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And you write a grant application and ask for funds to try and implement some best management practices. So some of the best management practices we ask some of the land producers in the area to do is cover crops. I have a good example here of a great cover crop. This is actually radishes and cereal rye. And in this particular soil tube box, these plants have been growing for 30 days. So in 30 days, their roots have made it down a good 4 feet. Now the reason this is good for water quality, it's also good for soil health, but it's good for water quality because, as I just said, the watershed is all the land the water's running across and down to get to a water body. When you have a root system with a plant in place, when it rains, it'll infiltrate down through the soil instead of running off. So whenever we have infiltration into the soil, then we have less runoff, then we have protected our water quality. And each one of these roots is making a little tube, per se, or a straw for rain to infiltrate down through. If this got super dry and then I poured some water into it, you would actually watch the rain go right down those channels. It's a pretty cool thing. This is a cover crop, and that's just one of the many best management practices we're trying to do.
Okay, when you talk about these type of management practices, you just mentioned cover crops. What are some other ones people can do?
Some other things we are trying to implement is not just cover crops, but you could do something like a stream bankment to try and keep the erosion on the stream bank. Try and get some livestock fenced out of the creeks and streams. If you go around in the area, a lot of cattle farmers are letting those cows get down in the creeks and streams to drink. Well, part of what we can do with the 319 grant is actually help them pay for the fencing and then to pump the water out of the creek into a holding tank or a water tank, and the cows can still drink from the creek and stream but not be in the creek and stream. And then in an urban area, we do a lot with the urban area as well, maybe put down some permeable concrete. It's kind of the same idea as the cover crops. We allow the rain to filtrate down as opposed to run. And then maybe rain barrels, rain gardens, things like that. Right now we're getting ready to put in a rain garden in Huntingburg near the lake, the Huntingburg Lake. Hopefully that goes in by the end of this year.
The bigger problem this year, though, has been flooding. What does that kind of do to water quality, and what should people be doing as we continue to get more rain, it seems like?
Well, unfortunately, we can't stop the rain as it's coming down. So if someone has a cover crop on their land already, they're going to see less runoff. So kind of being prepared is a big thing. You got to be prepared when there's drought. You got to be prepared when there's heavy rain. But there's really not much we can do when there's no early protection there. It's going to run off. But what you could do is, if you live in town, is maybe instead of washing your car in the driveway and allowing the rain to wash all that into the water system, wash it on your yard. The same thing, all that dirt and grime is going to go through the soil. The soil will help filter that out of the water before it reaches our water drinking supply.
Okay. You have a couple of events coming up, too, that you wanted to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. If you want to get involved in water quality or water conservation, there's a couple events coming up. The first one is Saturday, August the 8th at Vincennes University in Jasper, and we're doing what's called a Hoosier River Watch training. I have a thing right here. Basically, we teach folks how to get into the creeks and streams and do chemical testing and biological testing of the water it could be any creek or stream near your home. Doesn't have to be a particular Patoka lake or whatever. But we'll teach you how to go in there to the streams and do some chemical tests and biological tests, and then report that back to IDEM, and then they can see where the creeks and streams are in trouble and which ones are good. That's Saturday, August 8th. You have to pre-register, so you'd have to call me, 812-779-7924, to get registered for that. But another great one is at the Patoka Lake Watershed on September the 12th, on a Saturday. They're doing a lake cleanup event, and that is free. They actually provide lunch. If you pre-register, you can have a free lunch with that. So you go and pick up trash and litter around the lake to prevent it from getting into the water system. That helps with water quality. After that, about 1:15, we're going to try and do a water plant tour of the Patoka Lake Regional Water Facility. But that's limited to the first 20 who can come in. So we would need you to pre-register for that as well. Again, you can just call me to pre-register for that.
And then one last question. We did mention this earlier, but trash also factors in, like trash and debris that gets into the water.
Absolutely. Every bit of trash that doesn't get into the trash system ends up, they think it's just along the roadway or whatever, but all water runs and all the trash runs with it. So styrofoam cups, anything that your dog has left behind in the yard, or again, washing your car, anything the farmers are doing on the fields, if we allow stormwater runoff to get to our drinking water supply, all that's going to be with it. So that's another good reason to join us in the cleanup at the lake, is just to protect our drinking water.
All right, Julie, we appreciate your time tonight. That's been our interview with Julie Loehr of the Patoka River Watershed. Weather's coming up after this.